Good morning and welcome to a brand new day, a blank canvas untouched and full of possibility. As you sit here in stillness, know that you are not just waking up to another morning. You are awakening to a new version of you. Let's begin by gently closing the eyes and drawing the breath deep into the belly. Feel the air fill your lungs. Feel life entering you. Hold it and exhale slowly, letting go of yesterday. You are no longer your past. You are not your habits. You are not the stress you carried, the worry that weighed you down, or the story you've told yourself 1,000 times. Most people wake up in the morning and immediately recall who they were yesterday. Their thoughts race to the checklist of problems, responsibilities, and stressors waiting for them. They reach for their phone, check the news, scroll through messages, and instantly plug into a reality that confirms their past identity. Their body, conditioned by years of familiar emotions, instantly shifts into the biochemical state of stress, a cascade of cortisol, adrenaline, and vigilance that primes them not for creation, but for survival. Survival mode is the realm of the predictable. It's the domain of the known, of reacting, defending, controlling, and conserving. It's where your attention is fixed on your environment, your body, and the ticking clock of time. In this state, the mind becomes fragmented. It looks outward for danger. The heart closes. The energy contracts. And when the body believes it is under threat, even if the threat is just a calendar full of meetings or a painful memory from 5 years ago, it cannot be in a state of growth. It cannot create. It cannot create, cannot open to the mystery, the unknown, the field of infinite potential. So in this practice, we begin by breaking that pattern. We start by quieting the noise, not only in the room, but in the nervous system, the emotional memory of the body. We shift the seat of awareness from the outer world to the inner, and we remind the body that it is safe, that it does not need to anticipate the worst-case scenario or relive the past just to feel a sense of identity. Because the moment you disconnect from those habitual emotions of fear, guilt, anger, unworthiness, and anxiety, you begin to enter a new state of being, a state where you are no longer drawing your future from the past, but from possibility. Creation requires coherence. The heart must be open. The brain must be focused. Your energy must be elevated beyond your circumstances. You can't create a new life from the same thoughts that created the old one. Like Sonalist, you can't attract abundance from the frequency of lack. You can't experience unconditional love if you're broadcasting fear and resentment. So we step out of the emotional signature of survival, out of the known, out of the routine, out of the predictable personality we wear every day, and we begin to tune into something greater. We leave behind the identity that's been rehearsed over years of stress, the version of you who wakes up already remembering the story of what's missing, what's broken, what hasn't worked. And instead, we start building a new story from the inside out. Not by efforting or forcing, but by aligning. Aligning the thoughts you think with the emotions you feel and the energy you radiate. We begin to enter the field not as a victim of circumstance, but as a creator of reality. We remind the body again and again, through the breath, through stillness, through elevated emotion, that it no longer has to brace itself for survival. It can relax. It can trust. It can surrender to the unknown. Because the unknown is not something to fear. The unknown is where every new possibility lives. And the moment you step into it with presence, with intentional energy, you begin to collapse time. The future you used to long for begins to move toward you. You become a new signal to the universe. A new point of attraction, not defined by what has been, but by what could be. Would you like me to continue with the next keynotes expanded in this style? Emotions are not just fleeting feelings. They are signatures of your state of being. They broadcast an energetic frequency. And that frequency is either attracting or repelling experiences in your life. The body has been conditioned to memorize emotions long after the experiences that created them. We hold on to pain, disappointment, resentment, guilt, and without even knowing it, we begin each day from that memorized past. The emotion becomes the anchor. And as long as we feel the same way, we think the same thoughts. And as long as we think the same thoughts, we make the same choices. And those choices, repeated, create the same experiences, reinforcing the same emotions. It becomes a loop, a chemical addiction to the familiar. To create a new life, to draw a new future to you, you must break that cycle at the level of feeling. You must teach your body to feel something greater than what your environment gives you. You must generate. within the very emotions you've been waiting for something outside of you to deliver. This is the power of elevated emotion. You see, most people wait for success to feel empowered. They wait for love to feel worthy. They wait for healing to feel whole. They wait for the thing to happen before they allow themselves to feel good. But that's the old model, the Newtonian mindset of cause and effect. In the new model, you cause and effect. You feel elevated first, and that feeling becomes the magnet for the experience. So we begin to rehearse joy. We invite in the sensation of gratitude, not for what has happened, but for what is going to happen. We embody the fullness of love, even when there is no physical evidence of it. Because the body, when flooded with those chemicals, doesn't know the difference between the experience you're imagining and the one you're living. It believes it's already happened. And in that moment, your energy shifts. You are no longer a match for the old reality. You're not thinking from lack. You're not vibrating from fear. You've stepped into alignment with the frequency of your vision. When you sustain that elevated emotion, not for seconds, but for minutes and eventually for hours of your day, you begin to embody the future before it has occurred. You become it. Become. You don't hope for change. You are the change. You don't seek abundance. You radiate abundance. You don't chase love. You become love. The heart opens. The electromagnetic field around your body expands. And the coherence between your heart and brain becomes a signal. A clear, strong, organized signal that influences matter. You are no longer reacting to the conditions around you. You are creating new conditions by the signal you emit. So we come back again and again to those elevated emotions. We practice them not as a performance, but as a way of being. We rehearse gratitude not because something happened, but because we're calling it in. We feel freedom now, before the circumstance changes. We allow the chemistry of our body to become the evidence of the new timeline we are aligning to. Because when you elevate your emotional state, you begin to access realms of possibility that were once invisible. You become more energy and less matter, more cause and less effect, more creator and less reactor. You walk through your day, not bound by circumstance, but lifted by coherence. And that elevated state becomes the new baseline. Not temporary, not conditional, but memorized, wired, familiar. Let me know if you'd like to expand the next keynote in the same tone. I've got you. Your brain is not hardwired. It is not fixed. It is not a static machine built to simply process inputs from your external world. It is a dynamic, moldable network, a living map that reflects what you repeatedly think, believe, and experience. Every thought you think fires a set of neurons. And every time you think that same thought, you strengthen the connections between those neurons. The more you repeat it, the more efficient the brain becomes at firing that pattern, until it becomes automatic. Eventually, that pattern moves from a moment of thought into a trait of personality, into a filter through which you perceive all reality. This is the science of neuroplasticity, and it means you are not doomed to relive the past, unless you keep firing the past in your mind. You may have been thinking the same disempowering thoughts for years. You may have rehearsed limitation, unworthiness, doubt, fear, judgment, over and over, until they became not just what you thought, but who you thought you were. But here is the key. What was created by repetition can be undone by intention. Intention is the deliberate use of your will. It's the focused application of awareness to choose new thoughts, not from reaction, but from creation. When you hold a vision in your mind and align it with focused, coherent emotion, your brain begins to respond as if the experience is already happening. The circuitry reorganizes, new connections are made, old ones, unused and unneeded, begin to prune away. This is not fantasy. This is not affirmation without embodiment. This is rehearsal. Mental repetition with emotional engagement. When you mentally rehearse the life you desire, seeing it in vivid detail, hearing the conversations, feeling the outcomes, you are no longer a passive observer of your mind. You are the architect of your inner world. As you sit in meditation, your eyes closed, your body still, and the world around you fading, you have access to the operating system. You're no longer bombarded by the outer stimuli that keeps you anchored in the familiar. You are in the laboratory of consciousness, and here is where true change begins. You teach the brain what to fire. You condition it to believe in a new timeline. And when that thought, When that inner experience becomes more real to you than your current environment, the brain begins to function in ways that mirror your imagined future. You are no longer a reflection of what has happened to you. You are a projection of what you are becoming. And this is not about fantasizing. This is not escapism. This is evolution. It is using the power of focus and repetition, guided by elevated emotion, to install new patterns, to break the feedback loop between memory and identity, to move from the predictable past to the possible future. When you think a new thought with enough clarity and consistency, and you connect it to an elevated emotional state, inspiration, gratitude, love, you're teaching the brain and body chemically what the future feels like. And the brain, when impressed upon with repetition, begins to fire in new sequences, in new patterns, in new combinations. The mind literally changes. The structure, the synaptic wiring, the electrical firing, all reorganized around a new internal reality. The old circuits of fear, lack, and limitation begin to disconnect. They weaken. They no longer receive the voltage of your attention. They atrophy like unused muscles. Meanwhile, the new circuits, the ones built on possibility, freedom, abundance, begin to strengthen. They become more fluent. They gain coherence. And before long, they become the default. Not just what you think occasionally, but who you are consistently. You don't wait for the environment to confirm the change. The brain already believes it's true. And because the brain and body are always in communication, the body begins to respond with new chemistry, new hormones, new genetic signals. The change becomes not only neurological, but biological. This is where the mind becomes the medicine. This is where imagination becomes influence. And this is where your identity, once formed by reaction, is now formed by design. Let me know when you're ready for the next one. Tune into the quantum field. That one's going to get real expansive, absolutely. Here's an expanded version of a tune into the quantum field, in that signature Dr. Joe-inspired voice. Vast, metaphysical, scientific, and vibrationally deep. Tune into the quantum field, expanded, beyond the matter you can touch, beyond the body you inhabit, beyond the particles that form your physical world. There exists a vast invisible field, a field made not of things but of energy. A realm of infinite frequencies, endless waves of potential, all existing in superposition, waiting to be observed, to be collapsed into form. This is the quantum field, and you are not separate from it. You are immersed in it. You are an expression of it. Everything that has ever existed, and everything that could possibly exist, lives in this field not as something solid, but as a vibration, a possibility. You are not just a body in space. You are an electromagnetic signature broadcasting information into this field in every moment. And the field is responding, not to what you want, not to what you hope for, but to who you are being. To tune into the quantum field is to step beyond the known. It is to move your awareness beyond your body, beyond your environment, and beyond time. It is to step out of the illusion of separation and into the truth of unity. Because in the quantum, there is no here or there, no sooner or later, no past or future, only now, only everywhere, only possibility. You do not access the quantum field with thought alone. You access it through presence, through elevated energy, through coherence, when your heart is open, broadcasting gratitude, love, and wholeness. And your mind is clear, focused, and unified with that energy, you create a signal strong enough to influence the field. You're no longer bound by Newtonian cause and effect. You become the cause. You become the effect. You move from matter trying to change matter to energy influencing energy. The field holds the blueprint for every version of you that could ever exist. The healed version, the abundant version, the joyful, radiant, whole version. They're not fantasies. They're not daydreams. They are frequencies, already encoded in the field. And when you match the vibration of that possibility with your internal state, you begin to entangle with that timeline. The future begins to pull you toward it. But the key is this: you must feel it as real before the evidence appears. You must embody the frequency of that reality before it's reflected back to you. Because the field doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your energy. It mirrors your vibration. It aligns with your coherence. This is why we meditate. This is why we step into stillness. Not to escape the world, but to enter a dimension where all worlds exist. To leave behind the senses. To transcend the linear. To suspend identity. And from that space of no body, no thing, no time, you become pure consciousness. And from that place, you remember, you are not here to chase. You are not here to wait. You are here to tune, to feel your way into a reality that already exists, to align your internal state so completely that the external world has no choice but to rearrange, to broadcast a coherent signal into the sea of infinite possibility, and draw to you not what is probable, but what is possible. The quantum field does not favor one person over another. It doesn't reward effort. It responds to order, to clarity, to consistent energy, to the one who dares to feel the future more than the past, to the one who spends more time in vision than in memory, to the one who has the courage to live from the unseen. And when you are tuned in, truly tuned in, the synchronicities begin. The alignments, the openings, the improbabilities that feel too precise to be random. You are not surprised by them. You are not in disbelief. You recognize them as feedback, as confirmation, as the field whispering back, yes, you're aligned. Let me know when you're ready for the next one. Break the habit of being your old self. That's where it gets powerfully transformative. Here's a richly expanded version of a break the habit of being your old self, infused with that signature inspired depth, psychological, neurological, emotional, and deeply introspective. Break the habit of being your old self expanded. You wake up in the morning, and before you even open your eyes, your mind is already at work, reaching for familiar thoughts, scanning for familiar feelings, reliving yesterday before today has even begun. You think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, perform the same actions, follow the same schedule, interact with the same people, and call that a life. But what you're really experiencing is not life. It's a loop. The brain, by the time we're in our mid-30s, has become a record of the past. And if 95% of who we are by then is a memorized set of behaviors, emotional reactions, hardwired beliefs, unconscious habits, and perceptions, then for most people, the future is simply a rerun of the past. The old self is not just your personality. It's a programmed identity constructed from repeated experiences, sustained emotions, and rehearsed thoughts. It's built on stories you've told yourself 1,000 times. I'm not good enough. Things never work out for me. This is just the way I am. But those are not truths. They are neurological patterns, and patterns can be rewired. To break the habit of being your old self, you must first observe it. You must become conscious of your unconscious, You have to see how you think, how you speak, how you react, not from judgment, but from awareness. Because without awareness, change is impossible. You cannot transform what you are not willing to confront. Begin to notice the emotional signatures that keep you tethered to who you've been. The anger that flares automatically. The anxiety that spikes without cause. The sadness that feels familiar, even when it's misplaced. These emotions, as biochemical records of past experiences, are the anchors that hold you to your past identity. And every time you feel them, you are reliving the same story chemically. You reinforce the same neural architecture. You send the same signals to the body, and the body, being the servant of the subconscious mind, begins to crave those emotions. It becomes addicted to the familiar discomfort. So even when you say you want to change, your body is waiting for the same feelings, because to the body, that's who you are. This is why change feels uncomfortable, not because the future is painful, but because it's unknown. And the body conditioned by repetition would rather feel the same suffering than risk uncertainty. So you must begin the process of unmemorizing the emotions, unmemorizing the thought loops, unmemorizing the identity that was built out of past experiences. It is a conscious act to become the observer of your inner world, to interrupt the familiar internal dialogue, to catch yourself in the middle of the unconscious behavior and choose a new response. It begins with the space between stimulus and reaction, that split-second window where you have the power to pause, to breathe, to feel the urge to be who you were and choose not to act on it. Every time you interrupt the pattern, the signal weakens. The neurological connection loses strength. And with enough awareness, enough repetition, enough presence, it breaks. The habit begins to die. But you can't just stop being the old self. You must replace it. You must give the brain and body a new set of instructions, new beliefs to fire, new thoughts to think, new feelings to embody. You begin to rehearse a new state of being. even if it feels unfamiliar at first. You sit in stillness, and rather than remembering who you were, you begin to imagine who you could become. You teach your brain what the future feels like. You signal to the body that it's safe to feel joy, to feel abundance, to feel worthy, even without external proof. And slowly, consistently, intentionally, the old self begins to dissolve. You are no longer the personality that was shaped by pain. You are no longer the mind that was molded by survival. You are no longer the body that was programmed by history. You are no longer driven by unconscious memory, but by conscious creation. The person who once existed as a cluster of habits, reactions, and emotional residue becomes less and less real. Their voice gets quieter, their pull becomes weaker, they lose their grip, because the more energy you remove from the past, the more energy you free up for the future. The more you stop feeding the familiar emotions, the more your body learns to live in a new environment. An environment not shaped by who you were, but by who you are becoming. Let me know when you're ready to expand Create from the heart, not the head. That one flows straight from soul frequency. Here's an immersive and expansive version of Embody Your Future Now, in the transformative quantum aligned style inspired by merging neuroscience, metaphysics, and the language of the soul. Embody your future now, expanded. The future you seek is not ahead of you, it is within you. It is not something you arrive at, it is something you become. And the doorway to that future is not found in the outer world, but in the inner state you cultivate, moment by moment, thought by thought, feeling by feeling. Most people live as if their future is something that will happen to them, something that will unfold if the conditions are right, if they work hard enough, if the timing aligns, if the right opportunities show up. But this mindset keeps the future at a distance, always waiting, always conditional, always separate. To create true transformation, you must collapse that distance. You must close the gap between who you are now and who you wish to become. And the only way to do that is to embody the future before it manifests, to live from it rather than merely waiting for it. This means thinking the thoughts that your future self would think. Not thoughts of fear, lack, or doubt, but thoughts of clarity, gratitude, expansion, creativity, confidence. It means feeling the emotions that your future already contains, not after you receive the thing, but before. Before the healing, before the relationship, before the success, before the abundance. Because when you feel the elevated emotions of your future in the present, you're signaling to your brain and body that it is already real. And if your brain and body believe it's already happening, you begin to biologically align with a new timeline. You are no longer operating from memory. You are creating from vision. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between a deeply imagined experience and a real one. So when you rehearse your future state with clarity and intensity, when you see it, hear it, feel it, touch it in the mind, when your body is flooded with the chemistry of what's to come, you anchor that future in your biology. You literally condition yourself to that reality. That's how you become the frequency of the future now. Not eventually, not someday, but now. It is not enough to think about the future. You must live it internally. You must walk, breathe, speak, and move as if it were already done. You must treat that vision not as a wish, but as a memory. Something you've already experienced so many times in the mind and heart that it feels natural, inevitable, and familiar. And the more familiar it feels, the more likely it is to appear in your outer world. Because you are no longer energetically separate from it, you are resonating with it. You have become a vibrational match. You are not waiting for life to show you the new. You are showing life who you've already become. This is the essence of embodiment. It's not pretending. It's not performing. It's not performing. It's not forcing. It is being. Being the healed self before the body shows signs. Being the abundant self before the bank account changes. Being the loving self before the relationship arrives. Being the joyful self before the external conditions shift. This is not delusion. This is creation. Because the quantum field does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are, to the energy you consistently broadcast, to the emotions you've memorized, to the identity you've chosen to inhabit. And the more often you embody the future now, the more that future begins to express itself through you, through your choices, your language, your posture, your presence, your energy. You're no longer trying to get there. You are there. You've shifted timelines, not by doing more, but by becoming more. By remembering that you are not just the observer of your life, you are the creator. Let me know when you're ready to expand the final keynote. Create from the heart, not the head. It's where everything integrates. Absolutely. Here's a deeply expansive version of A Surrender to the Intelligence Within, written in the grounded yet elevated, mystically scientific style inspired by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Rooted in trust, surrender, and connection to the innate wisdom of the body and field. Surrender to the intelligence within, expanded. There is an intelligence within you that is older than your thoughts, more ancient than your personality, more vast than your experiences. It existed before you had a name, before you had an identity, before you learned how to survive. This intelligence beats your heart over 100,000 times a day, without you needing to think about it. It digests your food, repairs your cells, balances your chemistry, and orchestrates trillions of processes in your body with flawless precision. It is not governed by your ego, your calendar, or your plans. It is not logical, but it is infinitely intelligent. And it knows exactly what to do, if you let it. Most people live in their heads. They try to think their way through transformation. They overanalyze, overplan, overcontrol, believing that if they can just figure it all out, they'll finally feel safe, feel free, feel fulfilled. But the more they try to control, the more separate they feel. Because true transformation, the kind that changes your biology, your identity, your destiny, does not come from the head. It comes from surrendering to the body, to the field, to the deep intelligence that created you and is still creating you moment by moment. To surrender does not mean to give up. It means to get out of the way, to stop interfering, to stop rehearsing the worst-case scenario, to stop fighting for the limitations you've outgrown. It means releasing the grip of your conditioned self, the version of you that has been running on autopilot, trying to control the unknown with the tools of the past. When you surrender, you open the door to coherence. You shift out of survival and into trust. You hand the steering wheel over to a consciousness that sees farther, deeper, and more clearly than your intellect ever could. This is the intelligence that forms galaxies, splits cells, opens flowers, and guides the tides, and it's the same force that lives within you. It knows how to heal you. It knows how to align you. It knows how to unfold the highest timeline of your life in perfect sequence and synchronicity, not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. And yet, surrender requires stillness. It requires the courage to pause, to drop beneath the surface noise of your mind and feel into the subtle guidance of your inner world. It requires that you stop trying to make it happen and instead become the space for it to happen. You don't surrender once. You surrender repeatedly, breath by breath, moment by moment, especially when your old self wants to grip tighter, to return to the familiar, to demand the how and the when. You begin to notice those moments of tension not as obstacles, but as invitations, reminders that you are being asked to trust something deeper, something invisible, something far more intelligent than logic. This intelligence speaks through intuition, through sensation, through the sudden clarity that arises when you're no longer overthinking, through the peace that comes when you stop chasing and simply receive. And the more you surrender, the more space you create. Space for the body to restore balance. Space for the mind to quiet down. Space for the heart to lead. Space for the quantum field to flow through you, unimpeded, unobstructed. Like a clear signal that finally finds its channel. In this surrendered state, your identity begins to shift. You are no longer the thinker of the thoughts, but the one witnessing the intelligence beneath them. You are no longer defined by the limitations of your story, but by the expansiveness of your being. You start to live not from effort, but from alignment, not from fear, but from faith. Not from separation, but from union with the greater intelligence that has always known the way. Let me know if you're ready for the full guided morning meditation to manifest your dream life speech. We can start weaving all of these together into a beautifully flowing, transformational experience. Absolutely. Here's a powerful, integrative conclusion to your guided morning meditation to manifest your dream life of speech, staying fully aligned with that elevated, heart-centered, quantum conscious tone. Feel yourself, here, present, awake, aware. You are no longer the person who simply reacts to life. You are the one who creates it. You've shifted from survival into creation, elevated your emotional state, rewired your brain with intention, and tuned yourself into the quantum field where all possibilities exist. You've begun the sacred work of breaking the habit of being your old self, of embodying your future now, of creating not from thought alone, but from the heart, and surrendering it all to the infinite intelligence that lives within you. This is the new way of being, not doing more, but becoming more. Not chasing life, but magnetizing it. You are not separate from your dreams. You are the frequency that makes them real. And every time you sit in this stillness, every time you remember the future you're creating, every time you feel it as if it's already done, you are changing your destiny, not by force, but by coherence. So rise from this meditation not as your past, but as your vision made flesh. Walk into this day not hoping, but knowing, not waiting, but embodying, not striving, but trusting, because your dream life is not out there. It's already within you. And now you've remembered how to live from it.